Thank you, Acting President. I'm delighted to make a contribution on the Drugs, Poisons and Controlled Substances Amendment Pill Testing Bill 2024. This really is a landmark piece of legislation. After New Zealand, we're only the second jurisdiction in the world to actually legislate a drug checking service. So I take the opportunity to warmly commend the Allan Government for its courage and vision in moving this legislation and for its commitment to keeping Victorians, particularly young and vulnerable Victorians, safe. Pill testing, or drug checking, has been recommended by pretty much everyone who has an interest in harm reduction and saving lives. It has the endorsement of the AMA, the Royal Australian College of Physicians, the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners, to name but a few. No less than 5 coronial inquiries in the past few years have called for drug checking services to be introduced in the state, and of course the scheme has the strongest endorsement of those working directly in the harm reduction sector. Drug checking has been effective in saving lives wherever it has been provided, and the government has clearly listened to the expert advice and to the wider community in introducing this scheme. I'd like to address some of the remarks from those opposite, and let's start with the bleedingly obvious. People use drugs. It's a fact. And if anyone believes that the just say no approach to drug regulation works, can I say the war on drugs is over, it's been lost, and it died with Ronald Reagan. Okay? The distinction between licit and illicit drugs is at best arbitrary or perhaps just a continuum. I doubt there is anyone in this place, in this chamber, who does not partake in drugs in some form or another. All drugs carry some risk. But obviously, in an unregulated market, those risks are much greater. People shouldn't have to die because they take illicit drugs. The illicit market in Victoria is huge. It's worth at least $4 billion a year, so there's definitely a demand for illicit drugs. Let's not pretend that that demand doesn't exist. It's not enough to just say, don't do it. It's not enough to say some gangsters are bad and some are not, like has been suggested by Ms Heath. You know, the fact of the matter is all drugs are going to be out there, and we need to have a mature discussion about it. We don't wish death upon those who drive over the speed limit or jaywalk, and yet those activities are potentially dangerous too. Drug checking does not eliminate all risk. All it does is provide information to a person who is intending to consume drugs with information about what is contained in the drugs that they are about to consume. And then, armed with that information, that person can make an informed decision about whether to consume the drugs or not. The difference between now and what this proposes is the intermediary of information about the substance. And it works. In a 2022 study, 86% of consumers in Portugal and 69% of consumers in the UK didn't consume the drug they were carrying when test results indicated that the drug was different than they expected. Okay? Empirical evidence in this regard. I'd like to pick up a couple of other questions. So, I mean, one of the ones that I think is extraordinarily infuriating is this suggestion that, and we've heard this from the usual suspects, that the use of pill testing is effectively green-lighting children's drug use, which of course is just preposterous. I can't decide whether those opposite are being naive or disingenuous or both. But this frankly dangerous and reactionary garbage that ignores the recommendations of the Coroner's Court as well as the strong backing of the AMA and other peak bodies is really, really unhelpful. If we are to have any sort of impact on reducing drug-related harm in this state, we need to accept some confronting facts. Drug use among those under 18 is rising. Okay? It's not something we're just asserting. There's any amount of statistical data that supports this. It's a fact. Children as young as 14 are regularly using drugs. And nobody wants to see children taking drugs. But if they are taking them, and they certainly deserve the same access to information as their adult counterparts. The better informed they are, the better decisions they can make. It might save life, and to suggest that it is encouraging drug consumption is just gratuitous garbage. There's been an argument that's been put up that we shouldn't do this because we can't test for every variety of drug. Now, the opposition has complained that pill testing will not be able to test for everything and seem particularly concerned about nitazenes and that they will not be tested for. This is another furphy. Nitazene testing is entirely possible. You can already buy nitazene and fentanyl testing strips in retail outlets, right? We're not splitting the atom here. This is not cutting-edge science. However, and this is a really critical point, novel synthetic opioids are constantly changing. That's why they're called novel. So some will be picked up and some, newer synthetics, may not. For the opposition to attack the proposed drug testing program on the basis that it may not be able to capture every imaginable drug reeks of, at best, the pursuit of perfection being the enemy of the good. The technology available at drug checking services would be expected to use the best technologies and methods available. They will be able to test the makeup of most pills, powders, crystals or liquids and identify harmful chemicals that can lead to death. Importantly, the analytical chemists at the service may also be able to recognise additives that cannot be readily identified. Now, this is a major red flag that would-be consumers can be advised of by harm reduction workers. Now, ultimately, while not taking drugs is always the safest option, drug checking is a pragmatic approach that provides a unique opportunity to reduce the inevitable use of drugs. As explained by Director of the Drug Policy Modelling Program at the University of New South Wales, Professor Alison Ritter, who is an expert on drug policy, and I quote, "Encouraging young people not to do drugs is not mutually exclusive from offering drug checking. We can do both things at once." That was her quote. In other words, we can walk and chew chewing gum at the same time and implement meaningful harm reductions. To those who argue implementing drug checking is endorsing drug use, I say this: the opposite of just saying no is not just say yes. This is not a black and white issue. There is a middle ground where we can reduce drug users, we can educate drug users, we can foster trust, and we can create a stronger safety net. When people choose to experiment with drugs, the options for parents should not be limited to simply saying no. Instead, we can guide them to make safer choices, encouraging them to get their substances tested. The aim should be to ensure that our young people remain safe and healthy, even in the face of potentially risky decisions. So in conclusion, Acting President, drug checking services and naloxone rollout are long-awaited harm reduction measures that are an important plank in the state's response to alcohol and other drugs. We are delighted to see this spirit of progressive reform flowering within the Labor Party and are equally excited about the soon-to-be revealed statewide AOD strategy. We will be seeking clarification on some aspects of the bill in the committee stage, but I would heartily commend the bill to the House. Thank you.